Hey Internet, what's going on? I'm George Edward, a landscape photographer based in New York City. A bit of an oxymoron, but you know, we make it work. In today's video, I'm going to walk through how I edit my photos to look like Fuji Pro400H. I've been taking photos my whole life, I feel like is what most photographers say, but I have been taking photos for a very long time. I started taking photos seriously around like 5 years ago, right after college. Since then, I've felt like I've been able to develop a bit of a style for myself and garner a bit of a following on Instagram, shown somewhere on the screen right now. A few years ago, I think back in like 2017, I started shooting film pretty avidly, and I mainly shot Fuji Pro400H. I like the idea of having a little bit of a different look to my images. Portrait obviously being so popular, it just, you know, I didn't like the fact that it might look like everyone else's pictures. Like if we took the same picture, would the colors look the same and whatever. So I really started shooting Fuji Pro like 400H almost exclusively, and through that I learned a lot, right? I learned a lot about the color science on Fuji's film, and I loved it. It was my favorite colors, and it's why I continued to shoot it. But as we know, Fuji Pro 400H has since been discontinued, and almost simultaneously with that, I stopped shooting film. I got into medium format digital and started shooting that way more. The main reason I prefer shooting digital is primarily just due to workflow. I want to be able to go out, take some images, come back, edit them, and kind of see how I did. I'm a bit impatient, I'm a bit impromptu, I'm a bit spontaneous. I want to be able to have a workflow that works with that, and film just wasn't that. With digital, really what I try to do was kind of develop a workflow that worked for me and try to maintain a color palette that looked like the Fuji Pro 400H color palette. A lot of my images do have that film look, and oftentimes I get people that reach out on my Instagram asking me, do I shoot film? What kind of film do I shoot? What camera do I use? And do you shoot 120? And it's almost always a question that's geared towards film stock, because I think my images just have that look. Oftentimes, people are surprised when I say I do shoot digital, and they say, wow, I never would have guessed, or I had no idea. And sometimes people are offended because film evangelists are something these days. So what I wanted to do with this was actually open up Lightroom, walk you through my editing process from start to finish, show you how I go about editing my images, see if it resonates with you, and just kind of show you how you could develop your own style. What I think is really important to do when you're trying to develop your own style is copy other people's style. So hopefully this video will act as like a catalyst for you to start doing that, but I think you should use this as like your foundation, right? Start to use it if you like the way I edit like that, and start to kind of play around and get comfortable with the sliders within Lightroom so you can start to develop your own style. And that's the beauty of shooting digital, is you have the room in post to actually kind of make those changes yourself. So as you can see, this is already fully edited, right? But if I hit the slash here, once we click in, this is what the image looked like in camera. Pretty murky, right? Not super great. So what we're gonna do is actually completely reset this image and start from square one. Cool. So we're fully stock. This is what it looks like right off the bat. Pretty yucky, but we'll deal with it. First thing I do when looking at it, right, there's a profile I have which is linked below. So this thing, I don't use it on all my images, but there's certain ones where it just flattens really nicely. Kyle, I know you're not watching this, but shout out to you. It'd be wrong not to give it credit. It's a really nice neutral profile that does some flattening right off the bat. Otherwise, I use Camera Pervious Standard, and that usually gets me to an area I like, but I've really been liking his because it just mutes it really nicely. Then what I'll do is actually just a baseline crop. So from here, we're going to go to a 4:5 aspect ratio. Oh, we're not going to do that. And we're going to crop this bad boy in a little bit. So let's pull that out so this thing has some room to breathe. Doesn't need much though. And then we're kind of rule of thirdsy. Your eyes kind of come up here and follow the roller coaster down. So I like that. That's the crop we're going to rock with. So next up is colors, right? So what I'm going to do is actually, what I always do is just kind of bump up these blues. Like as you can see, it's going to saturate everything that has blue in it, and it's going to do an even calibration of those color sliders. And so I just did a little bump there. And then next, what I usually do is mess with the white balance. So I'm gonna mess with this, and I'll do auto So as per usual, the tint usually remains the same, but the temperature will actually change, and I think this is way too warm. So we're just gonna slide you down till we get to, I can't tell how warm I want it to be. I want to do that. I like having some warmth in there, mainly for the foreground. Still, everything here looks a little meh, but we'll fix that. Now, next up, this is really where a lot of my flattening comes in, is through right here on the tone and presence. So what I'm gonna do is actually jam this bad boy all the way down, and I'm cool with that. And same with this. And that's actually a little. It's a small little kind of thing in here. If you go too low, I like it where you can see that little kind of puff there. So I'm gonna actually do that a little bit. And then same on this end. And yeah, so this is where you're really gonna pull up some of that film look. So I usually just crank them all the way, depending on the size of the image. Like medium format, you have much more room, so you could really go from side to side. When I use my Fuji X100, I'm usually in like the 60s, but here I'll on medium format, I'll end up in like the 80s, depending on the image. And then here we're gonna crank to 60, because if we go, yeah, I like that. So now we can see we're already getting somewhere, right? Like this is pretty good. There's still some colors that I think need to get changed a little bit, but like this is getting us in the ballpark of where we want to be. So texture, I usually do kind of mess with a smidgen. So like this is where we'll kind of get that soft look. So with texture, I'm going to just like very subtly bring that down, because what we don't want is it to be blurry, but we don't want a super sharp image. Film isn't super sharp, right? And so we want to make sure we're kind of simulating that to the best of our ability. And then here we're going to kind of come down a little bit, because again, we don't want that. But if you kind of just go in like the sub 10 range, sub -10, like you're really going to kind of, again, just gain that like softness back that we were missing in that sharp, murky digital image here. I'm actually going to boost it. Let's go a little crazy. And then we're going to just bank up the saturation a bit. So, so tone curves. I know depending on the person using it, there's a lot used here. I don't really mess with them all too often, but a lot of my edits are primarily focused in the blues. So I do like to actually do a small minor S curve right here. Yeah, I like the way that's looking. Very minor, but again, it's just really to kind of, these are the main primary colors in the images, so I really want to kind of just like emphasize those. All right, so next, this is the fun part, right? This is where people, I think, spend most of their time, and this is where we're going to actually do the HSL. So this is your hue, saturation, and luminance. And so I'm going to do this pretty subtly, but I'm just going to do a little bit on here, because right, like as you start to see that the whole image becomes a little bit more orange, because really what you're doing is pulling those shadows in the roller coaster to the more orange side. So this is going to have a more even toned. Here, let's see. Yeah, I'm not messing with that. Yellow's the same. I kind of like yellow being just yellow, because you can see it here and it stands alone. Green. Nah, we'll leave that. Maybe aqua. I might want to smidgen of aqua. And the blue here, we're actually going to pull that down. And this one I always pull to the left. Really get that teal look. Now does the aqua interfere with that? Not too bad. I don't know what I want to do with the aqua. I'll leave the aqua right there for now. And then purple, magenta, I hardly touch unless they're like hidden in the image. And they sometimes often are, and you can pull those guys out. So saturation is where we're going to actually mute a lot of these. So I'm just going to pull, yeah, just a really light on there. The orange, I actually want a little bit more pop, because I mean, come on, the orange is the main driver here. Yellow, same thing. I'm just gonna pull that up, because like you don't want too much, because like the fence is yellow now, and that's just not the way it should be. Just want a little pop. We want some more yellow in there. No reason to touch the green. I want that to stay murky brown almost. Aqua, same thing. Blue, however, this is where it gets a little counterintuitive because I did adjust it all the way down here. So I'm just going to actually kind of counteract some of that, just the blue here. Because I like how the blues are all lifted, but I want to just kind of bring that down a teensy weensy bit. And then luminance here. I mean, maybe on this roller coaster a smidgen, but that's it. So then coming down here, this is where we get to bring that film quality back. We're just going to adjust our grain. So I'm just going to crank these guys all to around like an even in the 20s, 25, 25, 25. Because really what you want to see here is like the roughness can be pretty coarse. So I like this to be like a little bit above. The size though, like I don't like when it's too big. I think the default is 25. I'll just turn that down a smidgen. And then the amount, we'll keep that at 25. You don't want to go too crazy on the grain. I like a nice, pretty fine grain. And that's it. That's how we do it. That's how we pull those colors out, right? And so really when we're going through these edits, we just want to go through step by step. Just start adding some of those colors in. I actually thought this was a little too bright, so I turned the luminance down there. And then we can give ourselves an image that was like this, that looks like this. It has the color science that Fuji Pro 400H has in their film stock. It gives us the look that we want, like we were out shooting a Mamiya 7 all day, even though we were shooting our digital camera. Hopefully this all helps, right? This is really just the kind of the way I go through my process with images, and it varies from image to image, depends on the colors that are present, right? But for the most part, this is the way I'm actually going about editing my images. So hopefully this helps. Hopefully this gives you an idea of how to kind of achieve that film look. If you didn't already know how to do it, hopefully this gets you closer to that Fuji Pro 400H look. And hopefully it just gives you some stuff to kind of think about as you start editing your images to kind of simulate film. You don't necessarily have to shoot film to get the film look. I get the appeal of it, but for some people it's not feasible. Some people, iPhone is all they have. Some people, you know, whatever camera they have is all they have, and digital is going to be the more long-term sustainable solution. Film isn't for everyone. You know, it's kind of a privilege in a lot of ways. So what I wanted to do is put this video together just to kind of show you how you can still get that look, but maintain a flexible workflow. So hopefully this helped. If you like it, like it. If you don't like it, dislike it. If you want to stick around for more videos, subscribe. And if you want to hit me up and follow me on Instagram and reach out, and I'm happy to provide tips, and I always answer questions. So stay in touch. Peace.